have taken up the time to make this illustration so that I can explain to you what darts are. Darts are very important when it comes to dressmaking, and I'm sure at one point you might have seen some lines going across some dresses like this. These are what we call darts, and these darts are very important because we work with flat fabrics and we work with flat pattern papers, but the shape of our bodies have curves. We have some deep curves, we have some slopes. And if you look at this dress form, for example, you see that the bust area has a curve, and for a bigger size you see that these curves are more pronounced. If you're trying to use a flat fabric to make a dress, they would not sit properly along these bodies. So that's why we have to use darts to contour the body so that a flat fabric becomes so shapy that when a human being wears them, it automatically follows all the shapes and the curves and all the contours on the body. I hope this makes sense. With that said, I'm going to use these illustrations now to show you some examples of certain darts we have. So the upper part of irregular basic bodies would likely look like this, even though it doesn't look perfect, but you definitely have an idea of what I'm talking about. So I just marked the center now with some dotted lines, and I'm marking the bust points. So examples of that you'd likely come across on a bodies is, the first one is the mid shoulder armhole. The second one comes from the mid armhole, which is the regular princess dart that we know. Sometimes you can have some darts coming from the mid neckline like this. You can also have some darts coming from the waistline, which is the conventional waist darts that we all know. We also have some darts that can come from the side of the waist. This totally depends on the part of the body you are trying to contour. So I'll just transfer some of these darts to show you and give you an idea of what these darts look like when they are sewn. So this is the shoulder darts, and I have a video. My previous video shows how to actually get this dart. The next one here is the princess dart, which comes from the mid armhole, and the other one we have here is the kind of dart that comes from the waist and creates a kind of curve around the bust area. One thing you need to understand about that is that they always touch the bust point. They always intersect at the bust point, the apex of the bust. So the last one I'm just going to show here is the type of dart that comes from the center of the neckline like this. So the simple take home should be that you always remember that from regardless wherever point you're trying to get your dart from, it always intersects at the bust point. Now, using this basic bodice pattern, I'm going to be illustrating what dart manipulation. I have a very detailed video where I took all my time to explain in details how to draft a basic bodice pattern, because it is very important in dressmaking, and if you get the foundation wrong, there's no magic you can do moving on. So now I'm just going to use this basic bodice pattern to show you what dart manipulation is. First of all, I want to explain to you what dart manipulation is. Dart manipulation is a simple process of changing the position of your dart. For example, on this bodice pattern now, you can see that we have the bust dart and we have the waist dart. In a situation where I want to change the position of the bust dart, for example, I want to change the position of this dart now to the mid shoulder, all I need to do is to, first of all, I'm going to divide what I have on the shoulder by 2 from the neck width, and I'll mark that point. And one thing you need to know is, before transferring that, you want to cut out the darts you are trying to transfer. So in this case, I'll simply cut out the darts, and from the new point I want to transfer the dart, I drew a line to meet with the apex of the bust. After which, I'll slash open the bust point area where I'm transferring the darts from. Now I'll also slash the point where I want to transfer the darts to till I get very close to the bust point, but not slashing the paper open completely. After doing this, all I want to do now is to join back the paper on the bust line like this. And by doing this, now I've transferred the dart easily to the mid shoulder. And now you can see that this paper is no longer flat. So the next darts position I'm going to transfer this dart to is the mid neckline. And now I'm just marking the point where I want to transfer the dart to, and I'll mark the line to meet the apex of the bust. Of course, bearing in mind that darts would always intersect at the apex of the bust. So I'll simply slash through the line I want to transfer the dart to, and I'll simply close the former dart with my tape like this. After doing this, you can see that the dart has been easily moved from the mid shoulder now to the mid neckline, and you can still see that this paper is maintaining its curve. So the next one I'm just going to use as an example is the line. It's dart coming from the side waist, and by doing this I just slashed open the point I want to close. I want to transfer the dart, and I'm closing the former dart. So the next time you hear about dart manipulation, think of it as a process whereby you transfer darts along a body to fit your preferred contoured method or whatever you're trying to get. So there are instances where you don't want your dart completely opened and you just want to cover it back so that you can actually stitch on your fabric. In cases like that, you just need to place another pattern paper like this, and I'm going to tape down this paper. And once I've attached my pattern to the new paper, I'm just going to create a little shape above because I'll be needing some extra space when I begin the throwing process. Throwing is a process where you ensure that all the patterns fit even after alterations are made. For example, I've slashed this pattern open and I'm trying to close it back. In this case, I would simply bring the two main pieces together like this, and I'll fold it over, and I would use my tracing wheel to actually trace across to align the sides like this. So by the time I place my tracing wheel over this point, you see that I have something that looks like an arc, and that is the new point where I'll be stitching across. So I simply zoomed over to show you these dotted lines I got after using the tracing wheel, and this is what it looks like. So this is the reason why I added a little space above the pattern before I cut out that time. So in a situation where you draft patterns and you forget to go through this procedure, that's when you see situations where after joining, you see that the pattern or the fabric is not aligning anymore, and by so doing you now have to trim, and by trimming you cut off your actual measurements you're working with. So anytime you create darts and you are planning to sew them in, make sure you go through the trimming process. So finally, I'm going to illustrate the regular, or I would say the conventional princess dart we have been making. And to get that, we usually come through from the mid armhole, and as usual, I'm going to connect that line to meet the apex of the bust like this. And before I can get the dart at the armhole area, I'm going to slash open the point where I want to transfer a dart to, and I will go over to this point and slash it open as well, simply transferring the dart I have here to the armhole, the mid armhole. So I would close this dart now, and by doing that, I'm going to open another dart at the mid armhole. So now, as you can see me trying to close this dart, you would see how well and perfectly the sides align, and this is because I went through the trimming process, and I'm just trying to zoom this in so that you can see how well it aligns. So now I've transferred the dart to the mid armhole. The simple thing I'm going to do now is to slash open the waist dart, and as you can see, I will go ahead, slash it open, moving towards the apex of the bust. So once the waist dart is open, and we also have a dart at the shoulder area, at the armhole area, I'm just going to cover the mid armhole dart, and then I would also cover the waist dart. And by doing this gives us the conventional princess dart bustier that we know about. So I'm very sure that this video has helped someone to understand better how these things work and why we do them. So if there's anybody that's watched this video from the beginning to this point, I would be so sure that you've learned something from this video. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're yet to do that, because I put out useful content on this channel really frequently and you don't want to miss out. After subscribing, please make sure you turn on your notification bell so that you get notified anytime there's a new video on the channel. So this is what we have after joining the princess dart, the armhole dart through the waist dart. So in our next video, I'll be sharing with you a different method on how to transfer darts on a body's pattern. So this is just one of many methods of transferring darts. The one we've just learned in this video is called the slash and spread method. However, in the next video, I'll be sharing with you a different method and a different approach on how to actually do this easily. Thank you all so much for watching this video till this point. I will see you in my next one. I'm on Instagram at ini_vogue. You can contact me there, make video requests and suggestions. Thank you and bye.